So sometimes when I'm preparing a message, I come across some stuff that doesn't end up being in the message itself, but I think is really good stuff. It's kind of like one of those extras. And I want to share one of those with you this week because I think it's really timely. We were talking about that part of the prayer that said, "Give us our daily bread." And this guy Luther, who lived more than 500 years ago, he wrote this thing called the Small Catechism, and he also wrote another book called the Large Catechism. Large Catechism was bigger than the Small Catechism. And in the Large Catechism, under this, what does it mean to give us our daily bread, I ran across this quote. It's a little bit lengthy, so I wrote it down so I could read it to you. Listen closely. In talking about daily bread, he says, "Indeed, the greatest need of all is to pray for our civil authorities and government, for chiefly through them does God provide daily bread and all the comforts of life. Although we have received from God all good things in abundance, we cannot retain any of them or enjoy them in security and happiness unless He gives us stable, peaceful government." Now, Luther's not talking politics here, left or right, and I'm not talking politics either. I think what he's saying is, as you're exploring what kingdom values are, figure out how to apply them. And one of the best ways that we apply this, give us our daily bread, and in seeing that everything good comes from God, is to pray. And to pray specifically, he says, for our government and for our civil authorities and for peace and stability in society. We live in times that it's like, I think anger is the new pandemic that's going around. That nobody's listening to anybody. Peaceful protests end up at some point sometimes turning violent. There's all sorts of like anger and instability going on. And you know what? My first reaction when I see stuff like injustice is to complain about it. And when I see things like a peaceful protest, which is, one of the values that our country is founded on, freedom of speech, when I see that kind of go sideways and there be violence and destruction of property and, people have things thrown at them, police are under attack, I just want to complain about that. And when I've got here government officials doing kind of kooky things or making what I think are kind of silly decisions, again, I'll complain about that. And Luther, I think, causes me to pause and says, under this petition, give us our daily bread. When I'm praying for all those needs for myself, for my family, for my friends, for our church, little stuff and some really big stuff, he also reminds me, pray about that stuff that you're complaining about. Pray about our cities. Pray about our country. Pray for protection for everybody. Protection for police, protection for protesters, protection for property. Pray that those underlying issues would actually get addressed and even resolved. Pray for wisdom and discernment in our leaders. Pray that they make good decisions. I would encourage you, if you're watching this with somebody, if you're sharing with someone, to have a conversation about those two things. How can we pray for our cities right now? And how can we pray for our leaders?